Hey guys, it's Mrs. Rooker again. Go ahead and pause the video and do those review problems and then unpause the video. All right, here are the solutions. Go ahead and ask your teacher in class if you have questions on any of those. And then today we are going to find the standard form of the equation for each hyperbola with the given condition. So we're working backward now. They're going to give us some properties of a hyperbola, and we are going to write the equations. Obviously, it's going to be important to know the equations of our hyperbolas. So let's write those up here. Got x minus h squared over a squared minus y minus k squared over b squared equals 1, or it could be written the other way around with the y's first. So this top one that I have written is a horizontal. This one would be a vertical. Y minus k first over a squared minus x minus h squared over b squared equals 1. Or it's also possible to have one that's centered around the origin, and then you don't have to worry about h or k, which a lot of these are going to be centered around the origin, which will make them easier to work with. So the first one, they give us the foci and the vertices. So the first thing I notice is that the points are 0, -2. I'm actually just going to kind of graph a really rough sketch of this. 0, -2. That's where one of the focuses, or one of the foci is, and then 0, +2. And then the vertices are at 0, 1, 0, -1. So I know this is going to be vertical because of the fact that my vertices are vertical and the foci are vertical. If it's vertical, that means the y is going to be first. I also can tell, based on my little rough sketch, that my center is going to be at 0, 0, which is really nice. So that means I'm going to have y first minus an x second. And I don't need to worry about an h or a k because my origin, my origin is my center, which is nice. So I just need to figure out what a squared is and what b squared is. Well, I know that my vertices are 1, which means my a is 1. What I don't know yet is my b. So if my a is 1, that goes here. I need to find b. I know that my foci, which is my c, is 2. I'm going to use the formula, and I'm going to use this a lot. C squared equals a squared plus b squared. So c squared is going to be 2 squared, which is 4, equals a squared, which is 1 squared, which is 1, plus b squared. So subtract 1 from both sides, and I get that b squared equals 3. And all I really need is b squared. I don't need b, because what goes right here, what goes there, is going to be b squared, not b. If you look at our formula, that's b squared, not b. So 3 goes there. So I probably should have written this all green, so I'm going to change those both to green. So that's going to be 1, and that's going to be 3. And that is all I needed. So I needed an A and a B, an H and a K if there was one, but there wasn't one. So let's try the same idea on the next one, but this time I notice these are not going to be vertical, it's going to be horizontal. If you were to graph those points, those would be all along the x-axis. So this is going to be horizontal, which means the x goes first. So it's going to be x squared over something, and y squared over something else equals 1. We should also probably check, make sure that it appears as though the center is at 0, 0. If you were to graph those points, the center is at 0, 0. The fact that these are both 0 and the distance between this number and this number, those are both equidistant from 0, means that the center is at 0. It would be pretty obvious if the center wasn't at 0 there. All right, if the vertices are 5 and -5, then the a value must be 5. Remember, the vertices will tell you your a value. So a is 5, which means I'm going to put 25 here, because I always need to square that. So the one thing I'm missing is I don't know my b value. I know the c value is 8. So I need to use that information to find the b value. C squared equals a squared plus b squared. So 8 squared, 64, equals 5 squared, 25, plus b squared. Subtract 25, what do we get there? 49? Is that good math? No, 39 equals b squared. And again, that's all I need. I don't need b, I just need b squared, because that's what goes into the formula. So that there is our equation. All right, now we got something a little different. Endpoints of the transverse axis are 0, -8, and 0, 8. And the asymptote, or one of the asymptotes, is y equals 2x. So I notice that the asymptote is y equals 2x, which means it goes through the origin, which tells me that the center is going to be the origin, which is nice. And the endpoints of the transverse axis. So transverse axis is our major axis. And so if our major axis is on the y-axis, this is going to be vertical. And if it's helpful to visualize, we can always draw a picture. 0, -8, so way down here somewhere, 0, +8, way up here somewhere. And those are going to be the endpoints of the transverse axis, which is just another fancy way of saying that those are your vertices, which means our a value is going to be 8. The fact that they gave us the asymptotes means that we might want to use our asymptote formula, which is for vertical is going to be y equals a over bx. So a over bx is going to be 2x, which means a over b must equal 2. Well, we know a is 8, so we can plug 8 in for a. So it's going to be 8 over b equals 2, which means if I just multiply both sides by b and then divide both sides by 2, we end up with b equals 4. So our b value should be 4, and that's all the information that we need. We'll do, since it's vertical, that means that our y value goes first. So we're going to have y squared over, our a value is 8, so this is going to be 8 squared, which is 64, minus x squared over b squared, so 4 squared is 16. All right. Why don't you guys try this next one on your own, because it's similar to the previous one, and then obviously if you don't know how to do it, you can wait and watch me do this problem. All right, so we see that the endpoints of the transverse axis are on the x-axis. These points are on the x-axis, which means this is going to be horizontal, which means it's going to have x squared first and y squared second. All right, and then we've got an asymptote at y equals 3x. Well, when we're doing, if we have horizontal, the formula for the asymptote is going to be y equals b over ax. So that's backward from if it was a vertical. Let's see, what do we know? We know our a value, the endpoints of the transverse axis. That's our a value. A is 6. Let me find a good place to write it. A equals 6. And then we'll use that to find the b value. So we know that b over a x is going to be 3x. So b over a equals 3. And then we know that a is 6. So I'm just going to replace a with 6. And then just cross multiply b equals 18. So if b is 18, well, actually we'll just start with a. A is 6, so 6 squared is 36. B is 18, 18 squared is 340, no, why am I drawing the white? 324, there we go. 324. And we're done. All right, moving on, we now have something that has a center that is not the origin. So this is going to be a little trickier. We are going to have to make sure to use h and k this time. All right, so I'm going to start, let's see, first things first, the center is 5, -1. I think the easiest thing to do here would be to just draw a rough sketch so we can get an idea of what this looks like. We have 5, -1 is the center, and then we have a vertex at 8, 1. I feel like a vertex is more helpful in graphing, so that's why I'm graphing that next. 8, -1. So let's see, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, -1. So I notice here that the vertex, actually all of these, and I didn't notice this before, but all of these have y values at -1. So those haven't changed. Those are pretty constant. So it appears that things are running running horizontally. So this is going to be horizontal, which means when I write this, my x is going to go first. So it's going to be x first and y second. But remember, I'm going to have an hk because the center is not at the origin. And then I'm just going to put -5 in here because the center is 5, -1, and +1 here. It's just opposite of both of those numbers that go in there. And then this is going to equal 1. So now what I need to do is find my a value and my b value. Well, I know that my a value, I can find the vertex to find my a value. My center was here. My a value was 1, 2, 3 away from it, which means my a value must be 3. Which means this is going to be 3 squared, which is 9. And then I will need to find my b value. I don't know the b value, but I do have the ability to find out the c value. So let's see, c is 11 away. Well, let's see how far away that is from the center. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So that's 6 away from the center. So the c value is going to be 6. And we can use this formula, c squared equals a squared plus b squared, to find the b value. So 6 squared, 36, equals 9 plus b squared. 36 minus 9 is going to be 27. So b squared is 27. And that is all we need. All right, so now we are nearing the end. We are going to be doing some completing the square in order to find the foci and the asymptotes. So what we have here is a big, ugly equation that is not written in the form that we want it to be written in. So we have to do some algebra to rearrange this to make it into the form that we recognize. And the strategy, or whatever you want to call it, that we're going to use is completing the square. So I know Mr. Leisman went over this with you guys in the previous videos, and it's the same idea, except we're doing this with hyperbolas and not ellipses this time. The same idea applies. So we are going to group this so that we have the x's together. Oops. So this is going to be 4x squared minus 24x plus blank, because we are going to find a special number that completes the square so that we can factor that part. So that's the first part. And then we'll do the same thing with negative 25y squared minus, plus 250y. That shouldn't be, sorry, one second, plus blank, because we want to find the special number that's going to complete the square for that one. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this to the other side so that it's no longer in the way. So plus 489, and then we're going to be adding a couple things here. So that our equation stays or remains balanced. So Leisman talked about this with you, that you need to factor out the GCF, or factor out any leading coefficient first before you can complete the square. So that's what we're going to do with this part. The leading coefficient is 4, so we're going to factor that out. We'll be left with x squared minus 6x plus blank. We'll do the same thing here. We're going to factor out the negative 25. We'll be left with y squared minus 10y if you divide out a negative 25, plus blank equals 498 plus blank plus blank. So to find the special number that will complete the square, we are going to take this number, divide it by 2, and then square it. So 6 divided by 2, or negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3, squared is 9. But whatever we do here, we need to also do on the other side, but we have to be really careful. When we added 9 here, it wasn't, when we added 9 here, it wasn't just 9, it was 9 times 4. So really what we did was we added 36. So whatever we do on one side, we have to do on the other side. So we're also adding 36 over here. All right, now we'll do the same thing with this second one. We are going to divide 10 by 2. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. Squared is 25. So, sorry, my computer battery is low. There we go. 25. But when we added 25 there, it wasn't just 25, it was 25 times negative 25. So 25 times negative 25 is negative 625. All right, now we get to do some factoring. Look at this part. This is a perfect square trinomial. We try to figure out what multiplies to 9 but adds to -6. That's going to be -3 and -3. So this will factor to x minus 3 times x minus 3, or you could rewrite it as x minus 3 squared. Don't forget the 4 in front. Then we'll do the same thing with the next one, minus 25 times what multiplies to 25 but adds to -10. That's going to be -5 and -5. So this will be y minus 5 squared equals, and then we're going to combine 498, let's see, 498 plus 36 minus 625, and that gives us -91 on that side. That doesn't seem right. I mixed up my numbers. This should have been 89. When you add those together, you should get -100. So that's a nicer number to end up with. If we add those all up, we get -100. Now we're much closer to having something written like a hyperbola. The issue is a hyperbola should always be equal to 1, not equal to 100. So the last thing we are going to do is divide everything by -100. So we'll end up getting, here we'll have x minus 3 squared over -25. For this one, we'll get positive 4 on bottom. And then we'll get equal to 1. We're almost done. This just isn't the proper way to write this. We should always have a negative in between these. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch the order on this and put the y first. So it's going to be y minus 5 squared over 4 minus x minus 3 squared over 25 equals 1. And that's the proper way to write it. And you can see here that we have a vertical transverse axis on this one. And then we're going to have to use that information to answer the question. It asked find the foci and the asymptotes. I know A is going to be the square root of 4, which is 2. B is going to be the square root of 25, which is 5. And then I can use that to find the C. C squared equals 2 squared, which is 4, plus 25. So that's going to be 29. So C equals root 29. But that's not the actual C value. That's just how to find the C value. It's not centered at the origin. I know the center, I'll write this down, center is opposite of this, so 3 comma opposite of this, 3, 5. And then since this was vertical, I'm going to add to the y value to get the focus. So it's going to be 3 comma 5 plus or minus root 29 is where the foci are going to be. And then what's the last thing I need to find? I think I need to find the asymptotes. Yes, so the next thing you need to find are the asymptotes. I wrote that down wrong. The formula for the asymptote is going to be y minus k equals plus or minus, since this was a vertical one, it's going to be a over b times x minus h. Alright, so let's just plug into what we have. So this is going to be y minus 5 equals plus or minus A was 2. B is 5 times x minus 3. And that was a doozy, but I think that is it for that problem. And now we can move on to our last one. Well, kind of our last one. All right, so the same idea applies. We are going to regroup everything and then complete the square. So I'm going to group this as 4x squared minus 24x plus blank minus 9y squared minus 90y equals 1/5. Well, I should leave a little room. Plus blank equals, and I'm adding 153 to the other side so that's not in the way. All right, now I need to factor out the leading coefficient. So I need to factor out the 4. This is just going to be x squared minus 6x plus blank. And then on this one, I'm going to factor out the negative 9. Always factor out the negative. So we'll be left with y squared plus 10y, because when we factor out a negative, that will become positive, plus blank equals 153 plus blank plus blank. All right, so the first number that will complete the square, we're going to see what, or we're going to divide 6 by 2 and then square it. So negative 3 squared is 9. Whatever we do on one side, we do on the other, but this is not just 9. This is 9 times 4, so that's 36. And then over here, we have 10 divided by 2 is 5, squared is 25. But then we need to multiply that by negative 9. 25 times negative 9 is negative 225. All right, now we factor. This will be 4 times what multiplies to 9 but adds to negative 6. That's going to be 3 and 3. So it'll be x minus 3 squared. Minus 9 times what multiplies to 25 but adds to 10. That's going to be 5 and 5. So y plus 5 squared equals, and then we'll add together all the numbers on the other side, 153 plus 36 minus 225. I got an error somehow. 153 plus 36 minus 225 is negative 36. And then we need it to be equal to 1, not 36. So we are going to divide everything by negative 36 so that it can be equal to 1. So this first one, the 4 and the negative 36 will reduce to negative 9. This one will be positive 4 on bottom, y plus 5 squared on top still equals 1. And again, the issue is there shouldn't be a negative on the bottom on this one. So we're going to switch the order so that we have a subtraction problem. Oops. So the correct order is going to be the y's first. Y plus 5 squared over 4 minus x minus 3 squared over 9 equals 1. And that is our correct equation. And then we will use that to find the foci and the asymptotes. So again, we have another one that is a horizontal. And I'm just going to draw a sketch of this. I'm having major battery issues, so I'm going to pause and try this again in a minute. let's try this again. I'm going to do a rough sketch of this. We know the center is going to be HK, so it's opposite of -3 is 3, and opposite of 5 is -5. So 3, -5 is the vertex, or sorry, not the vertex, the center. This is vertical. Everything's going to be going kind of up and down from there. So let's see. I'm trying to find the foci. So A is 2, B is 3. So the foci are going to be c squared equals 4 plus 9, which is 13. C equals root 13 is where the foci will be, but then we have to add those to the center. So if the center is, what did I say the center was? 3, 5. We have to add that to the y coordinate since this is a vertical one. So the foci is going to be 3, 5 plus or minus root 13. Where the foci is going to be located. And then the last thing we need to do is find the asymptote. So the formula for asymptote again is y minus k equals, if it's vertical, it's a over b, plus or minus a over b times x minus h. So y minus our k value was -5, so y plus 5 equals plus or minus a over b, so 2 over 3 times x minus h, which is 3. That is it for that one. And our very last problem, what is a hyperbola? An ellipse is the sum of the different distances to the foci is constant. In a hyperbola, the blank of the distances of the foci is constant difference. So hyperbolas and ellipses really similar, but the hyperbola is the difference. The ellipse is the sum is constant. All right, that's it. Thank you, guys.